live session number 2. So if you're watching this live or you're going to watch the replay, this is live session number 2, call number 2. And tonight, what we're going to talk about is the 4 levels of a 360 leader. Now, when I came up with this thought process and this kind of analogy, leadership has so many different areas, and it encompasses a lot. But if you distill it down to 4 pillars, right? And I kind of thought about it long and hard and came up with 4 pillars that I look at and I evaluate in my own life, but also I speak on it, teach on it, coach on it, all that good stuff. 4 areas that you can look at and grow in to be a well-rounded leader, to be this 360, think about 360, a full circle leader, is number 1 is personal leadership, right? If you can't lead you, you can't lead me. And like Jonathan said earlier, you can't give what you do not have. And one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is, would I follow me? This is a question that we should ask ourselves every single day. As we do a daily reflection, we should ask ourselves, would I have followed me today? And I'll tell you personally, there's days where I can answer this and the answer is no. There's times where I fall short. There's times where I make mistakes, or, I didn't step up and lead the way that I know I could. And this doesn't mean that you're a failure. This means that you have some work to do. And then you ask the question, well, how could I do better? What would I have done to, why didn't I follow me? Or why wouldn't I have followed me? And what could I have done to change that outcome? And remember this, if I can't lead me, then I have no business leading other people. The next one is people, right? So after you're able to lead yourself and be the example, now you're in charge of people. And that ripple effect that we talked about earlier is when you make decisions, when you take actions, understand that it's not only affecting you, it's affecting those around you. And your inability to take action, your inability to be disciplined, your inability to make decisions will also affect those around you. And also, when we look at people, we have to understand what is leading us, what is influencing us, the positive and the negatives. We have to stop comparing and start connecting, right? And a lot of leaders today compare themselves and they look at where other people are and they say, well, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And therefore, maybe I'm not qualified, or I'm not, called to be in this role. And that's not true. You are in the position that you're in for a reason. And every place that we are right now in life, every one of us are exactly where we need to be to grow, to learn, so that we can lead. And we have to understand that when people leadership, this is how we choose to influence those we lead and those we love. It's not just leading in the marketplace. It's not just leading at the workplace. It's leading inside of our own home. If you can't lead from inside your front door, you have no business leading outside of it. And the next one is productivity, right? Your track record, your resume as a leader is what you are producing. What are the results that you're getting in your life, and what are the results that you're producing for other people? Understand that repetition equals results. And this is not only time management, but this is self-management as well. How are you investing your time? How are you investing your days into the bigger picture? This takes intention, and this requires us to be intentional with how we show up every single day. Once we are able to lead ourselves, we are intentional with leading people, and we are producing results. Then we have to understand, what is our purpose? What is the why behind why we do what we do? What is the reason we are choosing to lead, to be this influence, and to have this impact? And this is tapping into our God-given potential. Every one of us has it. And one thing that we have to do is to fulfill that potential. And this is where we start looking at our legacy. What will we be remembered by? It was once said that, God's gift to us is our potential. Our gift to God is fulfilling that potential. And tonight, what we're going to really hit on is the personal leadership. But before we do that, I want to share this compass. And many of you probably seen this before, but I just want to bring it back to your awareness and kind of go over it one more time. So the clarity, consistency, confidence, and character, this is kind of our compass on how we navigate, how we are leading, how we are showing up. In between those are the shifts that need to happen to make this possible. The personal leadership pillar has to do with our identity. How we see ourselves is going to be determined by the actions we take, our ability to reflect on the past and project our future. The identity is how we see ourselves is going to determine how we lead ourselves, and most importantly, how we lead other people. What I have found is that we don't treat people the way we do because of who they are. We treat people the way we do because of who we are. And if I don't see value in myself, I can never add value to others. And if I don't see myself as worthy or as a leader, then chances are I'm not going to lead. And if I do, it's not going to be very effective. And so clarity and consistency build this identity. when we have a clear vision on where we're going, who we are, and what we stand for, then we take consistent action. We start building the proof in our life that drives our belief, and our belief drives our behavior. This creates our identity and who we are. Most people say, well, I'm not a runner. Well, what do you do to build that identity? Well, you start to run. When I was doing my Ironman, I didn't look at myself as a triathlon person or a triathlete. I didn't look at myself as an endurance person. I was more of a lift weights and just try to stay in shape. And that identity had to be created through clarity of focus of what I'm trying to achieve and the consistent action every single day, even whenever it sucked, even whenever it was hard. And eventually I built the identity that, hey, I can do this. And so every day we are building our identity into who we are becoming. Everybody's capable of leading, but not everybody has the ability to lead because they lack the willingness to get clear on what they want, who they are, what they stand for, and the consistent action that takes every single day. Remember, repetition equals results. Now, once we're able to lead ourselves, then we get down to the intention piece. And that intention quadrant is our people leadership, how we're leading people. It's the intentionality every single day that we choose to be a positive influence in the lives of those we lead and those we love. This takes consistent action and confidence in who we are. And we're going to talk about this later. But if you are not confident in your ability to lead, you don't have conviction in yourself as a leader, nobody will ever be convinced in your ability to lead. And so this intention, how we show up every single day, is built on the consistent action that we take and the confidence that we have in ourselves. And confidence is built through consistency. If you're not confident in an area of your life, chances are you lack consistency. Most people aren't confident in going to the gym the first day. They go there and they lift a couple of weights and they look around and they say, man, maybe I don't belong here. Well, it's not that you don't belong. It's just you haven't put in enough reps or enough work and you're too busy comparing and competing against other people. And this consistent action built by confidence, right? It builds the confidence and that builds our influence. And so influence is our impact shift. This is our ability to have to produce results, right? And so whenever we are confident and we start building our character, that's where we start influencing the outcomes in our life. Confidence and character are what put our values on display. And most people will be influenced first by what they see and basically the actions that you take. Perception is reality for most people. And most people will look at you and they will automatically judge you and they will automatically have a perception of you. And so when I see a leader who steps into a room to influence the outcome, and let's say they're 150 pounds overweight, and they're trying to tell you what you should be doing, I'm sorry, but there's a bias that happens. And when people look at you and they see that you take care of yourself, only then will they understand, maybe he can take care of me. Maybe he knows something that I don't. And while I'm very big into fitness and exercise, I will tell you that is one of the key cornerstones to leading people, because before you talk, before you say anything, they're going to be judging you and evaluating you. And again, if you go in there and you can't take care of something as simple as your health or take care of yourself, how are people going to be convinced that you can take care of them? The next one is the impact. This is your purpose, right? So your purpose quadrant of leadership, character and clarity create impact. Who you are, what you stand for, who you project yourself to be, and the clarity that you have in your purpose and what you are doing, the why, has the ultimate result of impact. And that's how you are impacting other people. You can have influence in the lives of other people, but if you lack the character and the clarity, you won't have much impact. And so clarity, consistency, confidence, and character are all the cornerstone or the pillars of leading effectively. The shifts that need to happen are the identity shift, the intention shift, your influence shift, and also your impact shift. And so that's kind of a compass that I use to look at and say, okay, cool. Where am I lacking and where do I need to grow? What shifts need to happen and what shifts aren't happening fast enough, or where do I lack in these shifts and what needs to change? And mostly what I find in my life is my identity shift. I always have looked at myself as less than, and it's just something that I have, and I'm sure it comes from an upbringing that did not serve me at some point. And there's times where I go into these roles and responsibilities, and my identity is not in alignment with my assignment. And although I do have influence and impact, I often don't realize the significance of the influence and impact that I have because my identity is flawed. And I have to go back and reevaluate, well, why didn't I, or why do I lack in this area of identity, and what needs to change? And most of the time for all of us, we have to just build proof. It's constant repetition, this consistency that builds proof that says, you know what, maybe I am good enough. I'm not as bad as I think. And one of the ways that I do this is I keep note cards.
Ready, Rob?
I keep note cards with
We're gonna have to go in, Rob.
with
I don't have a
feedback
coat.
that says, from people that I've helped, people that I've served, that says, hey, because of this, I was able to, and it shows me that, hey, you're making a difference in the lives of other people. So keep going, keep being intentional with the influence and impact that you have. So tonight, what I want to really share is this personal part of leadership, the personal leadership, and this is the identity shift. Because I'm willing to bet that a lot of people that are going to be watching this or that will see this are probably struggling in this quadrant or this pillar. And some people aren't even aware of it. They show up, they want to influence, they want to impact people, but they have yet to do so because they don't feel like maybe they have what it takes. And so we're going to hit on the identity quadrant tonight. And so one of the questions I often ask when I'm speaking, especially to executive leaders, and I go into the room, I ask this question: why be great at what you do and suck at who you are? And this really strikes a nerve with a lot of people because in the military, we have a lot of great leaders. We have a lot of people that, fill positions that are very smart, very brilliant, very talented. They've been in the game for a long time, but they haven't been really intentional with how they show up and who they are. And so one of the questions I want you to ask yourself is, why be great at what you do and suck at who you are? Because you can be great at anything. You can have all the education and all the qualifications, but if you're not intentional with who you are becoming, the impact that you will have will not be as great as it should be. And so why be great at what you do and suck at who you are? This is the internal and external influence that we have. Okay. So I want you to kind of think about that as we go throughout tonight's lesson. Okay. The next one that I want to share with you. So personal leadership, 3 questions every leader must answer through their actions. And you've heard me say this before, but I want to repeat this. 3 questions we must answer is, can you help me? Can I trust you? And do you care? These are the questions that people are looking at, are asking themselves when they see you, whenever you are in charge, whenever you are responsible for the lives of those around you. The true mark of a leader is one who allows his actions to speak louder than his words. Remember, what you do speak so loud, I can barely hear what you say. And so while you might be saying something that's inspirational or motivational, if you're not walking the talk, it's going to fall on deaf ears. And so how do we do this with personal leadership? Number 1 is clarity. We have to be intentional with where we focus our energy. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so what are you focusing your energy on? What are you giving your energy away to? And really throughout the day, it's not time management, it's energy management. And this kind of goes along the lines of going to work and just giving it everything you got. And you come home and you're exhausted, right? And you give the best of you to your work and the rest of you to your family. We have to be intentional with where our energy is. And most of the time, if you think about throughout your day, one of the biggest times that we have the most energy is usually in the morning. By the afternoon, we're probably hitting the wall and we're thinking, man, I am exhausted, mentally exhausted, and it's affecting me physically. One of the ways that I was able to look at this and evaluate it in my own life was I would go to the gym first thing in the morning at 4:30. And I realized that waking up early, going to the gym, while I loved it and it was very beneficial, it really zapped my energy. By the midday, by 1 o'clock, I was hitting the wall and I was like, man, I am exhausted. And what I found was that if I would shift my workout to lunchtime, I could be really effective in the morning, get to work, get my coffee, my water, get into meetings or whatever I got to do for work. And I would be on fire, like, yes, good to go. And then by the time the afternoon came, excuse me, I would go to the gym at 12 o'clock and it would be like a reset button. It would be like getting my second wind. And it would, working out releases those endorphins that, by the afternoon, I'm like ready to go again because I'm running on that high of working out and I'm feeling good. And I'm like, all right, afternoon comes and I am just so much more effective. And so you have to manage your day by your energy and think about, where can I start putting things in that elevate my energy instead of take it away? The other thing that I started doing, and I told you in the email, was the importance of a morning routine. One thing that I started doing, and there's a great podcast, and I'll put it in an email, and I'll drop it in the chat as well. But there's a podcast that I found, and this guy's really interesting. He talks about human biology, and it was shared with me a couple of weeks ago, and it's called The Ultimate Human. Okay, and The Ultimate Human is Gary Brecka. If you ever heard of this guy, I've never heard of him. And a couple of weeks ago, somebody shared a podcast that he had with, man, who was it? It was I'll share it with you in just a minute. It was Gary Brecka and what's this guy's name? The Sean Ryan Show. And so Gary Brecka, episode number 163, Biohacking Secrets to Longevity, Aging Myths and the Science of Nutrition. And he had some really interesting thoughts about biohacking and nutrition and longevity. But if you go to his podcast, he has one about a morning routine. And I was like, I started listening to it, and there was some validity to it. And I started doing it. So I've been doing it for about a week now. And I'll tell you that it made a real big difference in the energy levels that I had, but also the way I was able to sustain energy throughout the day. And the morning routine is simply this. There's 6 things that you do. When you wake up, you drink a glass of water. So I have about 20 ounces of water. And there is Celtic sea salt. You can use any sea salt. You can use regular salt, whatever. But Celtic sea salt is what I have. And I put a dash of salt in the water, and I squeeze a slice of lemon in the water. And I drink it in the morning, and I do some yoga, some stretching, some kind of movement. And after you're done, you do breath work. So I do box breathing, but he has a breathing technique that he uses, and he'll talk about in the podcast. And then after you're done, you write gratitude, 3-4 things that you're grateful for on a piece of paper or in your journal, whatever the case may be. And then sunlight. And he's like, you get outside and just get sun. Most people are deficient in vitamin D, but he's like, sunlight first thing in the morning is very important, because if you think about it, most of us go to work when the sun's down. It's dark outside. We go sit in the office for 12 hours, and then we come back, get out, and we have a little bit of exposure to sunlight, but not a lot. And he said that sunlight, that vitamin D, is so important. And most people, when it's sunny outside, what do? We put on a hat or we put on sunglasses, and your eyes are what absorbs most of the vitamin D from the sunlight. And so those are a couple of things that I started doing, and I realized, like, man. Oh, and then the other one was delay coffee or caffeine for the first 90 minutes that you wake up. And what that does is it helps your circadian rhythm, but it also helps your body mitigate cortisone release. When you wake up in the morning, your body's still in a sleep cycle, and you go grab the coffee or the caffeine, and it actually releases more cortisol and makes you more tired. And I realized that, man, I'll get up and I'll have a cup of coffee first thing, and then I'm like, go, and then I crash. And it's like, man. So switching it with this water with salt and lemon had made a huge difference. And then delaying the caffeine until I get to the office, I'll have a cup of coffee. But it makes a huge difference to where I'm not hitting the wall and crashing. The other thing too is fasting in the morning, intermittent fasting. But if you go in the morning, you have carbs or sugars. That as well will spike your insulin, and then eventually you'll get tired and groggy. But what I found is that if I fast in the morning and have my first meal around lunchtime, I'm more effective, more clear, more focused on the task at hand than I would be if I had a big meal for breakfast. And so those are some things to think about when it comes to your energy. The next one on this quadrant is your consistency. Showing up regardless of every day, regardless of how you feel. This is your discipline, and we're going to talk about that as well. The next one is confidence, keeping the promises that you make to yourself and leading by example. And then obviously character, building proof of who you are becoming through continual growth. Okay, so these are some of the things that we're going to hit on tonight. The first quadrant is clarity. This is embracing your true identity. When you do that and you lead with authenticity, you pave the way for others to discover their own potential. They see something inside of you that they say, man, I want that too. And this can be your spiritual walk, your emotional intelligence. This can be how you carry yourself. And this is where your actions speak louder than your words. And what that does is it opens up the door to conversation. It opens up the door for connection. And understand this, that when it comes to clarity, every failed decision, every flawed assumption or fumbled approach can always be traced back to a lack of clarity in one or more of these 4 areas: vision, values, virtues, and voice. And vision is what we talked about in day one. This was what Stephen Covey says, always begin with the end in mind and reverse engineer the process by asking the question, who do I need to become? This is important because if we remind ourselves of this every single day, this vision will guide our actions throughout the day. But when we lose sight of why we do what we do, we just take action aimlessly, blind. And what we do is we get out of congruency with who we're supposed to be. Our core values is what keeps us grounded. It's what keeps us on this path. And when you don't know what you value, the chances are you'll value the opinions of other people. And I've seen this play out in my life multiple times, more than I'd like to admit. But when we have vision, values, now we have to have virtues. These are the habits. This is the behaviors driven by your beliefs. Your life, good or bad, is a product of the habits that you choose to entertain. Jonathan, you said this best in the beginning. Understand that you are where you are because of the choices that you made, not the choices that somebody else made. Every decision that we make is going to produce a result. And the habits that we choose to entertain are going to drive us where we want to go. And your life becomes created by these habits that we embrace. If you choose to get up in the morning and run a mile, chances are you're going to live a healthy, fulfilled life. You choose to wake up in the morning and smoke a cigarette a day, chances are you're going to live a life that's going to end in terminal illness. And I thought about this as, when I was training for my Ironman, I'd go for a run in the morning. And every time I ran through this neighborhood, there was this lady sitting on the steps of her house. And I'd run by and I'd smell cigarettes. And I was like, damn, it stinks. And every morning, without fail, she'd be out there smoking a cigarette. And I just thought to myself, wow, that one cigarette's not going to cause cancer, but over time, I would imagine that it's going to cause some kind of illness because of a slight decision of waking up, smoking a cigarette, or waking up and getting after it, going and helping your body, build the mindset and the fitness to have longevity. That's just a slight difference in choices that we make every single day. Now, the last one is voice. What we think about. This is the internal voice that we have, the negative self-talk or the positive self-talk. What we think about, we will become. And that self-talk eventually will become your reality. So we have to watch out for the voices that we entertain. And this is kind of what it looks like. If we look at it from a diagram, the vision that we have will be driven by the core values that we instill and the virtues that we encompass, all encapsulated by the voice that we choose to entertain. Now, the crazy thing about this is every one of these influences the other. If you have a vision, you have core values and you have virtues, but that little voice inside is not driving you in the right direction, it will diminish all these other three, right? And vice versa. If we don't have a vision and we're just going through life, we don't really get clear on the core values that we have, that we really, understand, our priorities get jacked up. And the habits will follow suit and that voice will diminish. And obviously we won't listen to that voice anymore. We'll listen to the external noise. And so every one of these impacts the other. And so we have to be really mindful with what we're paying attention to. Okay. One of the things that I was asked a long time ago when it comes to negative self-talk is, would you tell someone you love the things that you tell yourself? You see, that self-talk is so important. And sometimes we are our own worst critic. We are the ones that really are the critics, and also the self-judgment that we have for ourselves. And one way we can become aware of this is, would I tell someone I love the things that I tell myself? And I'll tell you, the things that I usually tell myself, I wouldn't tell my kids. I wouldn't tell my wife. I wouldn't dare tell somebody that I love the same things that I tell myself. And if that holds true, then why would you tell yourself that? If you truly love yourself and you have this self value for yourself, this love for yourself, the most important asset that you hold, why would you tell yourself negative things that aren't in alignment with who you are becoming? And this is something that we have to remind ourselves every single day. Would you tell someone that you love the same things that you tell yourself? Okay. The next one was consistency. This is our discipline, ability to give ourselves a command and follow through regardless of how we feel. Now, consistency in what? Consistency in 4 areas: your mindset, the meaning, movement, and mastery. Mindset is every thought that we have. We have to understand that it waters the seed of habit. This means what goes in will come out. Where is your energy, execution, and effort focused? Where are you aiming that effort, execution, and energy? Because energy can't be created or destroyed, right? And it's going to happen. And so we have to be careful of what kind of energy we are exuding. It's kind of like the vibe that we give to other people. You ever been around somebody and you just have a bad vibe? Like, man, I just have a bad feeling, get a bad vibe from that person. Well, it's because they are exuding this energy that's in a negative manner. And the same thing happens within us. If energy can't be created or destroyed, then we must aim it in the right direction, because energy will affect execution. Execution is driven by our efforts. And most people today won't give an effort to anything because they've kind of given up on life. And it all begins with the mindset. Okay. Meaning is our meaningful relationships. This is our investment in the most important asset, which is our people. Obviously, leading ourselves is a number one, should be number one on our list. But second to that is how we invest in other people, those we lead and those we love. And one of the things that I found is that, a key to a rich life isn't about how much you're able to get, but how much we're able to give. And when we are intentional with those we lead and those we love, we are able to bring them along with us for the journey to the top. I've seen so many times where leaders are just so selfish and they're just all about me, and they get to the top and they're all alone. They get to, what they consider, I've arrived, and they look around and there's nobody around. And how crappy of a life would that be to get to the end and realize that, man, I did it wrong. I did this totally backwards. Instead of giving, I was too busy getting. And that's what we see a lot today is more people are selfish than servant. They're so focused on being selfish that they don't serve those around them. And a true essence of leadership is serving other people. It's servant leadership. The next one is our movement. This is our physical body. Again, how you invest in yourself is going to be displayed for everybody to see with how you carry yourself. And you can look at somebody and tell how much they love themselves by how they take care of themselves. And unfortunately today, you don't have to ask somebody if they're depressed or anxious or have a negative self-talk. You can just look at how they carry themselves, and it'll tell you everything you need to know. And I get a lot of criticism from this, but when I go to the grocery store, I like to people watch. I go get groceries and I walk around and I just see people and I'm just like, man, especially men, out of shape, overweight, and just can't even carry themselves. And I think to myself, what happens when you're charged with protecting your people, protecting your family? And how bad would that be when your time is called to step up and stand in the gap, to stand in that and protect those around you, and you're not able to do so because you can't even help yourself? This goes back to being of service to other people. And so your physical body is not just so you can look good and have the six-pack abs. It's so that you're able to protect and lead people. And most people will look at it and say, "Oh, well, I can't tell you how many times I get criticized because my arms are big, or that because my uniform is fitting." And I was like, man, why do we criticize people who take care of themselves, and praise people who don't? It's kind of an ass backward approach. And I used to think about this all the time is, when people say, man, like you're looking big, you're jacked, I would say, yeah, I'm just a small man in a big world, and now I'm like, man, you know what? Screw that. Why can't we make, being healthy great again? Why can't we, make, being fit the norm instead of the odd man out? Like, why do you get singled out because you take care of yourself? Well, it's because most people will rather criticize you than say, hey, how do I do that too? Can you help me get in shape? Can you help me get fit? And not realizing that if you take care of your physical health, the mental health will take care of itself. It's connected. And when you love yourself and you have a positive self-talk and you care about yourself, then you start taking care of yourself, right? The last one is mastery. This is becoming known for something, right? Whenever somebody says, oh, Anthony, that's the guy that, right? Marcy, she's the one that, and this is your skill set. This is how you're able to give your gifts, talents, and abilities to those around you. You have to start looking at what you're good at, what you're great at, and doubling down and building on those skill sets so that you can be that vessel to give your gift, talents, and abilities to other people. And that doesn't mean you have to be a speaker. You don't have to have a podcast. You don't have to do any of that. But knowing what you're good at and using those strengths to lift people up, not tear them down. Okay. So this is the consistency. Remember this too. The discipline is the ability to give yourself a command and follow through, regardless of the situation or circumstance or feeling. Now, studies show that 5% of a person's success involves strategy and plans. The remaining 95% has to do with the mindset. Now, how crazy is this? It doesn't matter how talented or gifted you are. A lot of it has to do with the mental game. And I see this all the time, when I'm coaching baseball, a lot of the kids are very gifted and talented and they're very capable, but the mindset gets in the way. And so a lot of my job with coaching the youth, especially young men, is helping them with the mindset, getting the mindset right. Because if you can do that, that's 95% of the game. The other 5% is how strong you are, how good you are. And that same thing goes in our life, right? We can plan, we can strategize, we can be very talented and gifted, but if we don't have the right mindset, it's kind of useless. And so think about that whenever you are looking at your roles and responsibilities. Most of the work is done mentally. It's not the physical work. Okay. And then understand this too. Planning without pursuit is still procrastination. And most people will say, I'm a perfectionist. Well, it's not that you're a perfectionist, it's that you're letting procrastination stop you from getting a result. And we can't change a result until we get a result. And when we're looking at what we want to do, we can get busy planning and mapping everything out. But if we don't take action, it's still procrastination. You can be very good and have very good ideas, but without execution, there is no results. And so remember that your job as a leader is to produce results, not only in your own life, but in the lives of those around you. Okay. And then obviously discipline, it's a mental muscle. It has to be exercised in order to be flexed. And that has to be exercised every single day. Something as simple as putting the grocery cart back after you put your groceries in the car. That is something that is a small little discipline that separates you from 99% of the other people, right? How lazy are you to not put your grocery cart back, right? And it's just something that says, hey, you know what? This is a small little act of discipline that's giving me a vote for who I'm becoming. Holding the door open for somebody, that's discipline. It's, hey, you know what? I'm going to take time to pause and open the door so that you can walk through. And in the world today, those little acts of discipline go a long way because we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from putting other people first and to serve other people. And because we're so busy with what we're doing and we get so caught up in the doing that we forget the being part. Right. And so keep that in mind as you go throughout your day. Okay. This is a great analogy that kind of puts it in perspective of the negativity bias. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. For every negative thought, it takes 3 positive to offset it. And when we have inputs throughout the day, most of the inputs that we have are negative. Look at social media, look at the news, talk to 5 people. Everything is, oh man, did you hear about this? Oh my gosh, can you believe this? Did you see what so-and-so did? And those inputs, right, will become outputs. And so what we allow to influence ourselves or influence us will be determined by what we choose to focus on. And what we choose to focus on, if it's negative, that's what's going to come out of us is negative, because that's what we are focusing our efforts and energy on. And for every negative thought, it takes 3 positive thoughts to offset it. So just think about that. It's a negativity bias. Okay. Now, when it comes to positive thinking, while there is some validity to it, understand that positive thinking alone is not going to change your life. It don't matter how good you tell yourself you are, how much affirmations you do. If you do not take action, you're never going to produce the result. You're never going to change the outcomes in your life. And the proof is in the results that you get. We can tell ourselves, man, you're so awesome, you're great, you're amazing. But the only way that we believe that is by building proof. Proof drives belief, and belief drives our behavior. Okay. And think about that when you're leading people as well. If somebody's acting in a manner that's not conducive to the outcome that we want, it's not that they're a bad person. It's that, hey, what is the thinking that's going on behind that? What were you thinking when you did that? A good example of this is whenever I'm coaching these young kids, and they miss, they go up there and they strike out. Instead of getting on to them and telling them, why didn't you hit the ball? I bring them to the side and say, what was going through your head when you were up to bat? And most of the time, what's going through their mind is don't strike out, don't strike out. And so what do? They strike out. And so I tell them, well, what about if you just went up there and said, hey, make contact, just make contact with the ball. Something so simple as just make contact, and the rest of it will take care of itself. But these young men are so worried about not striking out that that's exactly what they do. And so remember, where our focus goes, our energy flows. And when you tell yourself, don't, stop, don't do this, don't do that, chances are you're going to do it because you're priming your mind to take that action, whether it's good or bad. Okay. Now, the next one is confidence. A mentor once told me this. He said, confidence is not always the loud roar. It's often the still small voice that says, I'll try again tomorrow. Confidence isn't really how much you can beat your chest and how loud you can be. And we see people like this all the time where they're just, talking down to people and telling them how big of a piece of crap and you got to be like me and you got to be macho. There's a time and place for that. But confidence comes from trying again. Even when you fall down, you get back up. And there's confidence in four areas as a leader. And the first one is confidence in yourself. This is your ability to move forward despite criticism and judgment, and understand that you have to be your biggest cheerleader. Nobody's going to care about you more than you care about yourself. Nobody's going to believe in you more than you believe in yourself, right? And the next one is social. How you choose to lead those around you and stand up for what you believe in. And this is hard to do because our initial reaction is to be part of the masses. We don't want to be singled out. We don't want to, not follow the crowd. We don't want to be in the in crowd. And there comes a point in your life where you have to say, you know what? Maybe that crowd is going in the wrong direction. I'm going to be the one that stands up and points people in the right direction. And so our confidence in our ability to influence the social circle around us, that social influence is so important. When you're playing the game, you're not really changing the game. And so you have to change the game by being that difference maker and saying, hey, what if we did this? What if we did things a little differently? And I'll tell you that it sucks at first because there will be people that will say, well, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? And those same people will be the ones asking you for help later on. They'll be like, man, why does that person have so many info? Why do people always go to them for information and advice? Well, because they're thinking a little bit different. And in the military, this is huge because we're so accustomed to just doing what we're told. And there is a time and place for that. But what if you chose to do things a little differently and got a better outcome? Then guess what? Now people begin to believe in you as a leader. And now when they need something, hey, I'm going to go ask that person because they don't think the way that everybody else thinks. And this is so important because this is the best way to increase your influence is when you start thinking differently and you start sharing those thoughts and those actions that make you stand out. You are going not just against the grain, but you're not playing the game, you're changing the game. The next one is confidence in your skill set. When you get dedicated to your craft, you aim to be the best at what you do, and you surround yourself with growth-minded people. And these are people that are pushing you out of your comfort zone. They're not just agreeing with your BS. They are pushing you to be better, do better so that you can have better outcomes. And when you become the best at what you do or strive to be the best at what you do, you're striving for excellence. That is a different way of operating. That is the ability to say, you know what, I might not know it, but I'm willing to figure it out. I have this learner's mindset and I'm going to learn what I don't know. And that ultimately leads to confidence in your service. This is where you're able to share your gift, talents, and abilities with those around you. And you understand that you have a gift and that you're going to share it. Like I said earlier, without conviction, your ability to lead, no one will ever be convinced in you as a leader. And so we have to have conviction, but this conviction comes from the confidence that we have in those four areas: ourself, our social influence, our skill set, and our ability to serve other people. Okay. And understand that leading others is nothing more than choosing to be intentional about being a positive influence in the lives of those around you. It's choosing to be intentional. Most people don't even understand that they have the ability to choose. The book As a Man Thinketh with Viktor Frankl, he says that, they can take everything away from me, but they cannot take my ability to make a choice, my power of choice. And, he was in the concentration camps. All of his family got killed. And he would get beat and he would have that he would choose to take his mind and put it on what it's going to look like when he gets out, teaching his students and going through the process of being the psychologist. And he ended up doing that. He survived the concentration camps and he went out and changed the world. And he has a book that's amazing. It's a short read, but As a Man Thinketh, he talks about the power of choice. And so every day we get to choose how we will show up, how we are being intentional. So never underestimate your power to choose what you will and will not do, but also choose what you will and will not tolerate. That is so important because we don't get what we want, we get what we tolerate. So we have to set a standard for ourselves, and we never deviate from that, regardless of the situation, the circumstance, or what other people might say. Okay. And this is kind of a question that I asked earlier, but what will you be known for? Put your name in there and say, oh yeah, he or she is the person that. And so what is that you will be known for? What will people say about you? Because what they tie to this will become this will become your your character, but also it'd be your reputation, right? But if you take care of your character, the reputation takes care of itself. But what will you be known for? There has to be something that you're going to have that when people hear your name or they see your picture or your face or your bio, they understand what they are getting. And this allows you to be that consistent in times of chaos. Okay. And most importantly, when it comes to sharing your gifts, talents, and abilities, your ability to serve, you can never be the best kept secret. For a long time, out of a flawed identity, I would never want to share what I'm learning or what I think because I never thought it was good enough. And so I would always just, oh yeah, and I would just listen. I would never speak. And I can't tell you how long it took for me to just get up and just talk and share my thoughts or what I'm learning, and understand that there's people that are hungry for knowledge. They want to know what you know. And it might not be for everybody, but it is for somebody. And so you can never be the best kept secret. I think about Jonathan and his profession as a surgeon. If he didn't do a great job and didn't get results for his patients, they would not go out there and be messengers and say, hey, if you want to get your total knee done or your shoulder or this surgery done, you need to go see that guy. It's because it's no secret that you're the best at what you do. You strive for excellence in all that you do. And people know that, they understand that. And then they go out there and spread the good news. And then guess what? You have people that you never even met come to you and say, hey, can you help me? Do you care? Can I trust you? And that's what we want to look at when we're sharing this message. Never be the best kept secret. You will get criticized, you will get judged, but that's okay. You're not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. But you are for somebody. There's somebody out there that needs to hear your voice. There's somebody out there that needs to see you in action. And when you understand this, then you understand that there's a responsibility for you to share what you're learning, to share what you've learned or what you've overcome. And this goes with the success and the struggle, because most of us are connected through our struggle and the sacrifices that we made. And when they understand that you're a normal person, you're human, only then will they care about your success. And this is one of the biggest influence factors in our ability to lead, because I've seen so many leaders who talk about how good they are, what they've accomplished, how many degrees they have, what they've been able to do. And that's great. But are you a real person? Can you relate? Are you relevant? Are you going to be real with me and share with me that it's not going to be easy, that there is going to be failure involved, and that failure is the flavor for success soup. If you're going to create a success soup, the flavoring to that is the failures that you overcome to get there. Without failure, without struggle, without sacrifice, there really is no success, is there? And how boring would your life be if all you did was just get everything was handed to you on a silver platter? And that's boring. And in the generation that we're leading today, they want to know that it's okay to struggle. They want to know that it's okay to fail. They want to know that it's okay to sacrifice, that you're going to have to sacrifice. And when we're able to share that through our own journey, that allows us to be relatable, to be relevant, and to be real with those around us. The last one now is character. And you've heard me say this before, but credentials will get you in the door, but character is what determines if you stay in the room. And without character, I don't think you can really lead, right? And if you are leading and you have a flawed character, it's only a matter of time before it's found out. And what is character? It's integrity, humility, courage, and self-discipline. It's everything that we talked about up until this point. And integrity is holding yourself to a higher standard and holding yourself accountable for your actions. Because if you can't hold yourself accountable, how are you going to hold other people accountable? And if you look at the world today, especially in the military, right, because that's what I do, there's a lack of accountability. And it's not because of the people around us, is because the leaders at the top. When a leader fails to hold himself accountable and hold himself to a standard, it's very difficult for other people to be held to a standard and to be held accountable. It's just not, it's out of integrity. You're a hypocrite. And so we have to understand that when we hold ourselves to a standard, only then can we hold a standard for other people. And the next one is humility. We have to recognize that we don't have to have all the answers. It's our ability to learn, to be willing to learn, especially from those below us. I've always looked at it from the sense of there's somebody out here that can teach me something that I don't know, regardless of what level that they're at. I've learned more from people that are lower ranking than me than people that are higher ranking than me. And it's through that connection that I realized, like, man, somebody here has something they can teach me. And if I don't pay attention, if I'm not humble myself, I'll miss the lesson. I'll miss the ability to learn. And one of the biggest things in leadership is listening, because if you listen and you ask the right questions, people will tell you what they need from you as a leader. But how many people do you know just assume, they guess at best, and they miss the mark on connecting with those? And many of you have heard me, and my technique that I use is I give a note card or a sticky note to those that I speak to, and I ask them two questions. One of the questions is, if we were to have a cup of coffee, what would be one question that you would want to ask me? Anything personal or professional, what would be one question you want to ask me? Now, this is only effective because I shared with them my journey, my struggle, my success, my failures, my shortcomings, and I've opened up to them, and now they're opening up to me, and they're telling me, hey, man, if I had a cup of coffee one-on-one, this is what I would tell you because I trust you. And then the next question is, what do you believe is the biggest obstacle to you having success personally or professionally in this organization? And I have, over 1,000 note cards in this box here. And if ever I want to know, how do I lead people, or what do my people need? I can go in that box and pick it up and read it. And it'll tell me exactly what I need to do, or what my people need. And when you're able to do this, it's like having a roadmap, and no longer do I have to guess, because if one person out of 150 have this question, there's chances are there's about 100 more that have the same question. They're going through the same problem. They're having the same struggle. But it takes for us to be humble, to have humility, to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. And one of the most important things that we can learn is about the people that we lead, about the people that we love. And you will never get to learn about them if you don't share a part of you. And so humility is huge. And I'm learning this, as I continue to grow as a leader, and as I continue to climb, that humility is the key that opens the door to connection. The next one is courage, the resilience to stand firm in your values, even when it gets hard, and to be willing to weather the storm, to have courage to stand in the gap. And also the courage to say what's right, even when nobody else agrees, even when it doesn't benefit you, to have the courage to step up and say, hey, you know what, maybe this is how we should approach this situation. I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I was with the admiral, chief of staff, and all these higher ranking individuals. And they were talking about how the Hospital Corps Mene School is struggling with their school. And they're like, why do we have a 58% pass rate? What the hell is going on over there? Are these kids not smart enough? Are we recruiting the wrong people? What needs to happen to fix this, number? They were so fixated on the number and the piece of paper that looks good that we can send up to the Surgeon General. Like, what do we need to do here? Do we need to recruit smarter people? And I raised my hand in there, and I was nervous, I'll be honest. And I said, having come from that command and spoken to thousands of kids over there, the problem isn't that they're not smart. The problem is they don't believe that they can do it. We have a problem because there's kids that don't even want to be in the medical field. There's kids that didn't even sign up for this job, and they don't believe that it's possible. And I was like, so as an instructor, when I was over there, one of the biggest battles we had was to convince them that this is an opportunity for them to grow and to learn and do something great. But I was like, what we have now is a lot of instructors that don't even believe in the process. And if they don't believe, how are they going to help these kids believe that they can do it too? And so everybody was like, huh. So I was like, there's a bigger battle ahead of us than just teaching this curriculum and having these kids pass. These kids are struggling with basic life skills. And I'm sorry, but if I'm struggling at home in my personal life, I'm definitely going to struggle in my professional life. And I was like, so we need to go back to the basics and help these kids with the basic life skills, right? They're dealing with stuff at home, back home, that's affecting the way that they show up here. And out of that meeting came an opportunity to create a life skills program for these young kids. Because if you think about it, we're recruiting kids right off the street, kids that are where I once was. I mean, coming and living, homeless, and now you want me to save somebody's life? Like, how am I supposed to connect those dots? I needed leaders to show me that it was okay, that it's okay to fail, that struggle is part of the process. And not only that, but be able to mentor me and help me see that, hey, you can do this, and I'm going to help you. But when we're so fixated on the numbers and just pushing this curriculum and pushing tests and trying to get them to focus on what the task at hand is, but their focus is back somewhere else, their personal life, we have a bigger problem than just passing the test. And so I had to have the courage to step up and say, hey, wait a minute, we're looking at this the wrong way. What if we went back and helped these kids with basic understanding, basic life skills, resilience, mindset, the same things that we talk about? What if we help them with that? Could that change the outcome of these testing scores? And they're going to put that into practice, and we'll see where it happens. I'll report back to you once it's done. But it took courage to step up and say, hey, what if? right? What if what we're doing here is totally wrong? And we have to be able to do that as leaders, not only in the professional life, but in our personal life as well. And the next one is self-discipline. Again, this ties it all together. Commit to excellence in all that we do. We'll never have the courage. We'll never be humble. We'll never have humility. We'll never have integrity if we don't have self-discipline. This is the tying element that helps us lead by example and realize that actions speak louder than words. Nobody in that room would have ever listened to me if I stood up and I looked like a bag of shit and I was overweight and I was just looking like, what do you have to say that's going to help this drive this meeting forward? But the opposite was true, because when I stood up and I talked, everybody listened, because like, wow, okay, well, this is a lieutenant commander who obviously takes care of himself. He also, has a track record that shows that he leads people, and maybe he has something to say that we can learn from. And that's exactly what happened. But it took self-discipline to be able to get up with the courage and humility to say, hey, what about this? And so all these are intertwined, right? And so we have to understand that. Accountability is a leader's best friend. Understand that we can never hold someone to a higher standard than the one we hold for ourselves. Okay. And then C.S. Lewis said it best: humility is not thinking less of ourselves, but thinking of ourselves less. It's being able to pause and say, what do those people need and how can I serve them? Not what can I get from them and how can I step on them to get to where I want to go. And humility is not putting ourselves down and saying, well, I'm just going to be humble here. It's just thinking of ourselves a little bit less than what we do, right? Getting out of this self-preservation mode. Okay. Now, one thing that I'm realizing, as I grow in my faith, is that we can move forward in faith or remain paralyzed by fear, but only one of us will serve us as a leader. Only one of us will move our mission forward, and that's moving forward by faith. Understand that we might not be able to see clearly where we're going. We might not understand the mission fully, but with action backed by faith, we will get to our destination. And that has been an outcome and a realization that I've had over the last couple of years as I've been continuing to grow and realize that, hey, I don't have to have all the answers, that I can make a decision with 60 to 70% of the information and trust that the rest of it will come should I continue to move forward. Okay. Now, one of the things that I want you to take away from tonight is that as leaders, we have to commit to excellence. We have to push through adversity and stay focused on our mission. Regardless of the circumstance or situation, the only way that we're going to achieve the outcome is through committing to excellence, pushing through adversity, and staying focused. Because one thing that's killing everybody today is distractions. We get motivated and then we get distracted, and it's this roller coaster of ups and downs that take us away from where we are trying to go. And so we have to understand that when we commit to excellence in all that we do, we stand in the face of adversity, and we have confidence to continue to push forward. Only then can we take people with us and lead people. But most people will fold in the face of adversity. They will freeze. They will fall. They will get paralyzed, and that's where we start failing not only ourselves but those around us. And so, that being said, I want to open up for Q&A. Anybody have anything they want to add to what we talked about tonight? Any thoughts, any ideas? I want to save a little bit of time for Q&A, let's say 10 minutes. But does anybody have anything they want to share with any of the topics that we discussed?
I think that through all of this, I'll add something. As you said, once you've gained this confidence, you do have to express yourself sometimes, uh, blow your own horn, if you will, because nobody else will. And that, as you say, doesn't mean it's not arrogant, but you do have to put yourself forward sometimes because yes, absolutely your actions do, but sometimes not every situation is calling for action, but you do have knowledge, you do have capabilities, and don't be afraid to make yourself heard, make yourself known. It's just a small thing, but people need to remember that you're present and you do have contributions, perhaps not at that very moment, but don't be so, as you would say, so humble that you don't that you forget to remind others that you're present and you do have a voice. And with that, I'll stop my voice, but it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes with, knowing the value that you bring to the table, right? If you don't know what you bring to the table, you'll always be on the menu. And understanding the value that you hold, and that you do have value to share, and then having the courage to speak up and share that, right? Don't be the best kept secret. Absolutely.
You have to be aware that conflict is going to exist. And I think what people need to understand is conflict is not like getting into a shouting match with another person. It's just allowing uh, the situation to say, hey, listen, I see that we have an issue here, and let me share with you what I think might be a solution. Let's discuss this. I think what happens, especially as you move up in leadership positions, I think sometimes what happens is people sometimes become fearful of, well, people naturally are just fearful of conflict. It's like people who are fearful of, public speaking. I mean, the conflict is present, in everyday situations, and it can be handled in a respectful manner, and I think that people need to understand that in order to get things taken care of or action to be performed, you have to be willing to engage conflict and not be fearful of it, and but yet do it in a respectful manner.
Yeah, absolutely. So many people avoid conflict and not realizing that sometimes it's necessary. But again, yeah, how you approach it, right? How you approach that in a respectful manner. And I would say too, like as a leader, nothing's more powerful or shows your strength more than your ability to handle that conflict in the right manner. When you do fly off the rails and you start yelling and raising your voice and flexing your position, there's nothing more weaker from a leader than doing that, right? And we see it all the time, and nothing helps you lose
Well,
credibility than doing that.
yeah, but here's an example I was thinking of is that, like, say for example is, you don't fly off the handle, but you're in charge of a group of individuals and they're struggling with the problem and you need to address senior leadership. You're kind of like the mid-level person, but you're afraid of how you're going to look. You need to speak on behalf of your people and say, "Hey, here's a problem that we're dealing with, and here's what can we do about it." And you have to make it about your team, not about you.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me, I at one point I got to sit in for my boss, and one of my colleagues, one of the fellow officers, were going to captain's mass, and they had to go up to the captain's mass, and there was a couple individuals in there that were in leadership positions, and they were all in agreement that this person should get punished to the max. Someone were saying they should get kicked out of the military, and this is somebody who's been in for 20 something years, because they made a mistake, and it was rightfully so. They made a mistake. They owned up to it, but it wasn't something that should have ruined that person's career. Not only that, but they have a family, they have kids, they have a whole thing. I mean, you're diminishing 22, 23 years of service because of one little mistake. Got it. We can punish them, but it doesn't need to be to the max. But again, flexing the rank, the position, the authority, we need to take them and hang them to dry. And for me, I was the lowest ranking person at that time in that position, sitting in for my boss. And the commanding officer said, "Well, Lieutenant Wait, what do you think? I'm interested to hear what you think." And everybody in the room was silent and looking at me like, "Okay, you better agree with everybody. Like this is, you better tell them like, hey, this is what we need to do." And I said, I believe that the person made a mistake, but I don't think that makes them a bad person. I don't believe that we should move forward and take their rank and punish them to the max. I think that this should be dismissed and they should, get a counseling or whatever. And the CEO says, very well, then this case is dismissed. And the people that were in that place, in that room, looked at me with such disgust and disdain that I didn't agree with them. But it was in that moment that, like you said, is like having the courage, and there's a conflict. I mean, it was a lot of tension in the room. But to be able to say, hey, what if there's a better way to handle this? And again, I was, commanding officer, like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. What do you think? And he took my advice, my decision, and ran with it. And that person that was there, broke down and cried. And after that, it was just like, thank you so much. Like, and I looked at it from a position too, is that like, even in my position, I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm not perfect. And I would hope that if I was in that position, somebody would stand up for me. Right. And it was a pretty cool moment because not only did it impact that person, but no longer than I left to go back to my regular position, people were coming up to me like, man, thank you so much. Like, you really stood up for what you believe in. You took care of your people. It was spread throughout the command of what I did. And so it increased the influence, it increased the confidence that my people had in me that, hey, he's not like everybody else. He does care for his people. And it almost took for me to put myself on the line, everything that I have on the line, and say, hey, if this is what it takes to help this person, then I'm willing to do it. And it was scary. Yeah. And again, you're standing in the middle of conflict, but the way you, like you said, John, the way you handle it, I could have went up there and be like, oh, bullshit. But we could have went back and forth. It could have been a big mess, big argument match. But it was in that confidence, that calm confidence in times of chaos is what makes a leader and shows your character. And I'll tell you that I normally my default is not that. I'm usually an angry person. I yell and get mad and just screw this shit. Like I break it, tear it apart. Not people, but things, right? Like I just anger is my default. And like as you get older, I guess, and wiser and hang around with wise people, you realize that that's not always the best case, and that usually doesn't create a good outcome. I might get that done, and people might do what I say, but at the end of the day, I'm hurt more than they are because I know that that's not who I want to be. And so I started to realize, like, man, I don't want to feel like crap after this. So let me handle this in a different situation, right? A different manner. And so, yeah, so you're right. When you're put in those positions, it's not your time to flex your authority. Sometimes it's to have faith and help people have faith in your ability to lead. And sometimes, again, it's not courage, is that loud roar, it's that still small voice. And nothing's more, I think, nothing's more powerful or like scarier than a leader who comes into conflict and just says, yeah. And they're so calm about it. It's like, that's kind of weird. Like I'm expecting to get my head torn off. And this person's so calm about it. It's like, oh, that's even more, intimidating than somebody who just yells. Cause you're expecting that, right? You're expecting to get your head torn off. And they come at it from a different approach. And it's like, wow, it's more powerful, I think, as a leader. I think it gets your point across a lot better too.
I learned that from my father. And, he rose from a very humble background to be a senior vice president of a television network. But I learned from him absolutely in conflict. He would just get quieter. And it would just absolutely, and people hang on every word. And I've had a few situations where I've had to straighten out some things. And when you bring it down, you show that you have self-confidence because you believe in your position and you don't need to yell. And it's interesting to see people take a step back and listen and absolutely absorb. But yeah, it's a very effective, I hate to say technique because it really comes from within, but it shows that you have self-control. Absolutely. And confidence and integrity, absolutely, in your beliefs. So
yeah, and even with the youth too. We're at baseball practice about a week ago, and this young man was just making mistake after mistake after mistake. And normally it'd be like, "What the hell are you doing? Why can't you catch the ball? It's so silly. Like just ground the ball." And so I called him over there, and he comes over to me. He's scared. He's like, "Oh shit, coach is about to yell at me." And I got down on one knee and I said, "Is everything okay?" And he looked at me and he just kind of was quiet, like, "Are you all right? Is everything good?" And he just broke down crying. He was just like, and I was like, "Hey," and I gave him a big hug and I said, "It's all right." I was like, I don't know what they went through that day, but I was like, hey, I said, get out there and do what you do, man. Like you're a great ball player. Just go out there and have fun. And damn sure enough, he went out there and he was catching the ball. He was doing it. And he was laughing. I was like, sometimes, yeah, it's not the yelling that gets it across. It's that just understanding that, hey, man, I'm here for you. I'm on your side. Don't worry. But it's like you said, it's more powerful, I think, whenever you're calm, you're confident, than it is to join in on the chaos and be that type of person. So it's really cool. So thank you, Marcy. Anybody else? Any takeaways or thoughts from what we shared tonight? Well, some homework that I want to give to you guys is take the slides. I'll send them out to you here shortly after this. But take the slides and go through them and just kind of grade yourself on that personal leadership. Those four character traits: the clarity, the confidence, the character, the consistency, and just ask yourself, how am I doing on these? At a scale of 1 through 5, how would I grade myself? And then identify areas in your life where you could be more consistent, where you could be more confident, where you can gain more clarity, and most importantly, where you can start building more character. I think that, no matter where level we're at, we can always grow in these areas. But the personal leadership quadrant is so important, because when you get that part right, everything else falls into place. The personal leadership influences the people leadership. It influences your productivity, and it influences your purpose. And when you're able to lead yourself, nothing speaks more louder than the actions you take as a leader to help other people see that, who you are and what you stand for. And then the other thing I want to challenge you with is look at the standards in which you operate. Look at those standards that you have for your life and ask yourself, am I holding myself to a high standard? Or am I letting other people put standards and expectations on me? Am I living up to my standard or to their standard? And what I found is that when I would live up to the standards and expectations of other people and I fell short, I always felt like a failure. But when I had a standard and expectation for myself, what I realized is that no matter what expectation or standard people put on me, if I operate at my standard and my expectation, then I will never miss the mark on a standard or expectation people put on me, because my standard's always going to be higher. My expectations always going to be higher than the expectations of those put on me. And when you're operating from that high standard, it builds confidence in your ability to produce. And so when somebody does undermine you or talk down to you or criticize you or judge you, you realize that it's not a reflection of who you are. They're just projecting who they are and how they feel. And it's so important, because when you realize that, you understand that you'll never be criticized by somebody who's doing better than you. I have yet to see it. And as you climb up and as you get bigger and do bigger things, it comes even more. Like there's more people going to do it, and it's going to be very easy to fall victim to that and let that affect you, how you show up. But when you have a standard for yourself, then you can ask yourself, are those people living by a standard or have a standard higher than what I have for myself? And chances are they don't, because if they did, they would never criticize you in the first place. They would have never judged you or talked down to you. And I look at it because that's something that I would never do, right? I would never look down or talk down on somebody, especially somebody that I'm leading, because that's not helping them grow. It's like, I think it was Nelson Mandela said, the same power it takes to break somebody down is the same power it takes to lift them up. Which one will you choose? And we all have the power to do that, right? We can get off this call and go tear somebody down really quick, or we can choose to build them up. One of those are going to be destructive and one of those are going to be constructive. And they will always remember how you made them feel. They might not remember what you say, but people will always remember how you made them feel. And so why make them feel like crap? Because they're going to remember that. And no matter how good you do after that, no matter how much you apologize, they're always going to remember that time that you tore them down. Nothing's ever going to replace it. And I've learned this with my own kids, my wife, the people that I lead, is that we all have the power to hurt people, and sometimes when we get truthful with ourselves and real with ourselves, I always tell people the truth hurts, but the truth also heals too, doesn't it? when you get true and when you get real with yourself and say, man, you know what, maybe I was an asshole. That hurts to hear, but sometimes it's what you need to heal. And you realize, man, how can I do things differently? And it all comes back to the becoming, right? I want to have influence. I want to do these things. I want to do what leaders do, but who do I need to be in the process? Who do I need to become to do that? And it's in the being, not the doing, that we get more stuff done. So anyways, I know we bumped up on time. Does anybody have anything they want to say before we call it a night? Any saved rounds? I want to be mindful of your time. I know it's getting late past my bedtime. So, well, thank you guys again for showing up tonight. I'll send the replay and the slides over to you. Is everybody getting the emails? I just want to make sure that everybody's on the emails or getting the emails with the replays and the PowerPoints. If you're not, please let me know, and I'll send them to you separately. But if you have any questions or anything after this, if something comes to mind, please shoot me a text or send me a message, and let me know how you're doing. And if not, I'll see you on the call next Wednesday, same time, same place. Okay. Oh, Marcy, you're muted.
I don't know Paul Beam.
Oh, you don't know Paul? You should know Paul.
I don't. I don't know Paul. Do I not know Paul? Why don't I know Paul? Maybe I'm losing it.
Yeah, Paul's been a good friend of mine for years. Paul, you want to introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted, Bob. Let's see.
I can't read lips.
Yeah, you're muted. Let's see. There we go.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. I'm Paul.
Well, okay then.
So I'm out here in Austin, Texas, and I actually live in a little town called Leander. Been hanging out and around and following Anthony for, I don't know, several years now, I guess.
Yeah.
He's actually been out to a couple of my events that I host, and has been a speaker at my events. So yeah, I'm just here along for the ride and the growth.
Yeah.
There you go.
And Paul's going to be humble, but he has a men's ministry, and he has is every year you get a ranch and you have guys come out and they do all kinds of manly stuff like shooting and outdoor stuff, and then he helps them with faith. They're building their faith and who God is and who God says they are, and it's a men's faith-based ministry, and it's pretty cool. It's
Very
powerful.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we host 2 events a year, one in spring and one in the fall, and we focus on vision, identity, and purpose for men.
Very nice.
All right,
Good.
guys. Well, have a great
Good night.
night, and I'll see you here
Thank
next
you. Thank
You
you.
bet.
Bye-bye.